Oh my God, Mitch, I'm sorry. I was just so surprised to see you standing there.
Not as surprised as I was. You're gonna love it, huh?
Yeah, it's beautiful, but I miss the beach. You should come back to Baywatch.
That's that was the ocean. Yeah. That was.
That was the first note of the theme song. Let's start with that drum fill.
And that's all we can do for legal reasons. As of yet, we're waiting
to get the approval. Yeah.
We're gonna be part of the Baywatch community. The franchise. Hopefully, we're working up to that.
Yeah, we're definitely making them like us the way we're complimenting their writing so much.
I think so. Yeah.
So this is Baywatching. This is Bill.
And this is Drew. Welcome back to the Bay. Okay. How are you?
Drew, it doesn't work when you ask the audience questions here.
That's right. Well, you guys can answer. We'll give you edit in like space for
answer in the
to
comments.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
the episode we're talking about today is Sky is Falling, and let me tell you, it was a doozy. It was October, I think 29th, 1989, and we were in the sign of Scorpio. In that special week of October, people were listening to "Miss You Much" by Janet Jackson, which I don't know. The Bride of the Reanimator, directed by Brian Usna, was a very popular movie. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a nice, like, silly B movie.
The Bride of the Reanimator.
Yeah.
That sounds...
It's good.
That sounds wonderful.
It's a great cheesy horror movie,
oh my God.
Like Frankenstein.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Somebody reanimates their dead wife is what it sounds like.
Exactly.
Or something. All right, good.
And, also one of the best-selling books at that time was titled Roseanne. It was written by Roseanne Barr.
I was going to say, yeah, because that was one of the most popular shows at that time.
Right. But, of course... not as popular yet as it probably would be. We're on our, I think, 8th episode of Baywatch was airing that day as well. And one thing I want to say first before we get started is, as Bill and I have been talking about this show, I realized a little bit that Baywatch is a bit of a relationship signifier. Bill, I'm going to tell you a little something. Bill and Angelina, as Bill's girlfriend that he's totally not making up for this podcast, they had a certain experience that he told me about watching Baywatch at this current episode, and they're at a relatively newer point in their relationship than a character that I'd like to introduce called, we'll call her Vanessa, Bill and Ange watched the show. They had some laughs. Angelina was making fun of it, I watched the episode with her. She made fun of it for a second, and then she just left me.
Vanessa, you're saying.
Vanessa left me, yeah. I mean, not like left me, but she just left.
Well, you're separating, you're getting your records.
Right.
That type of thing.
Right, yeah. She threw all the clothes out, of the window,
right.
No, she just walked away, and I'm just like, this is where we are versus you guys. It's not a bad thing. It's just that right now, your guys' time is sweet. Like, you gotta savor it, Bill, because, Ange has time for Mitch, and Vanessa doesn't have time for Mitch.
Yeah, you're right. If it wasn't like a newer point in the relationship, she might be like, you know what?
Yeah,
I got other things to do here.
Right. So savor that Mitch time, Like,
all right.
She's gonna have to listen to the podcast to catch up,
And or Vanessa, yeah. She'll get it.
Well, now from Mitch, let's go to pitch.
Okay.
And you want to go first or you want me to go first?
You go first, Drew.
Okay, here's my pitch. A new thing we're going to do now to just try to talk about the show is even less. And that's that we're just going to try to pitch the episode in a log line. So mine is our two heroes, Boris and Natasha, attempt to upset the status quo by liberating millions of dollars from a private bank. But to their dismay, they lose it when their plane crashes into the sea, just as Old Man Thorpe is reminiscing about the good old days on the sandy shore with Mitch. Now, Mitch has to deal with the plane wreck and his train wreck of a marriage. He's mid-custody battle, so what better time is there to fuck your ex? Of course, Hobie is fed up with his life, and so are Shawnee and Foster, who are stuck with Thorpe and his new hard-on for tower duty. That's my pitch. I think I clocked in at actually like 3 long sentences.
Wow, that was only 3 sentences?
Yeah.
Interesting. Lots of semicolons there.
Yeah. And bad grammar. I didn't check it.
Yeah, mine is only like 3 phrases. It's going to be like, easy money, old guy gets back on the sand, and bye-bye, mommy.
Yeah, I like that.
That's our 3 plot lines for this episode, basically.
Yes. I'm going to clip your bye-bye, mommy there. We can use that, because I'm sure we're going to be able to use it. And you said it really well.
Yeah, because there was a lot of that. We'll get into that, maybe. I don't know, but that end of the episode.
Too.
And bye-bye, mommy. Yeah. There was the most dramatic episode. I mean, there was a lot of tear-jerking moments there.
Now, let me tell you about it, Bill. I'm gonna have a lot to say about it in this reading here that I prepared.
All right, go ahead.
So I'm going to start off, though, Bill, by saying that the ocean is evil. Bill, the ocean is fucking evil.
Well, it kept those robbers alive.
Well,
yeah,
I'm gonna tell you
seems
why.
like it's got some weird choices.
It's a very broad plan, and of why he kept them alive, and it has to do with its influence in writing Baywatch. But it's mostly evil when we look at it from a human perspective, And also, I'll say about the ocean that it's a free market capitalist, Bill. Is the original corporatist, and it's not only unconcerned about the environment, but it's actually welcoming environmental catastrophe. You might assume that the ocean has it out for humanity, but no, we're not even an obstacle. And some humans are complicit in the ocean's dastardly deeds. Mostly, though, humanity is only a tiny cog in the ocean's plan for world domination and revenge.
Yeah.
Before I explain this, though, let me talk about why we're here.
So I think
TV.
Okay, but I think I get where you're saying, though. It's basically not that the ocean is like evil trying to destroy humans, humans are the enemy. We're just kind of in the way.
We're in the way,
of its plans.
Some of us can help
benefit in the short term.
By helping, and we'll help the ocean to further this ocean plan.
I'll let you continue.
Okay, yeah. So where we go now is to TV, which is what we're all here for, what we all love and worship. We've described the emergence of television as a purely capitalist thing, like a capitalist art form. It was made to sell products and was even described by many who created and wrote it with mechanistic and industrial terminology. We talked about that in a previous podcast. There was a strict set of unwritten rules for how to write television, and they were informed by what would sell. Things were going swell for a couple decades after I Love Lucy, and products were being sold. Social norms weren't really being challenged that radically, and labor movement and social justice was relatively not a thing. But by the 60s and the 70s, it became clear to the ocean and to those helming society that a political project was needed to curb the power of social, political, and labor reform. David Harvey is a professor of anthropology and author of A Brief History of Neoliberalism, did an interview at the Jacobin. And I just want to talk a little bit about his interview here. He said, in many respects, the project I'm describing that the ocean was beginning to form, was a counter-revolutionary project. It would nip in the butt at this time what were revolutionary movements in the developing world like Mozambique, Angola, China, but also a rising tide of communist influences in countries like Italy, France, and to a lesser degree, the threat of a revival of such in Spain. It was even a response to, in the United States, trade unions that had produced a democratic Congress that was quite radical in its intent. And in the early 1970s, they, along with other social movements, forced a slew of reforms and reformist initiatives which were anti-corporate. The Environmental Protection Agency, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, consumer protections, and a whole set of things around empowering labor. There was a global threat to the power of the corporate capitalist class. The ruling class wasn't omniscient, but they recognized that there were a number of fronts on which they had to struggle. The ideological front, the political front, and above all, they had to struggle to curb the power of labor by whatever means possible. out of this, there emerged a political project which David Harvey would call neoliberalism. So, what does this mean for TV? Well, it means fucking Baywatch, Bill. This is the most popular show on the planet, Bill. This show, forget exporting goods, forget exporting democracy. It was Baywatch time. This show made the world smaller. It's the first show that was an American show shown in China. And according to one of the writers of the show, I watched a documentary that we've discussed off air. One of the writers was saying, Baywatch was even a show that was shown in these tiny villages throughout the world where there was one TV. Island communities had to row, for miles and miles to organize on one dock around one community television, and hundreds of these islanders were watching Mitch.
One Baywatch episode.
Yeah, they had to. It was that good, And, it was a show with the most attention in the world. The first show with $1 billion viewers. And attention is TV capital. TV was exploding its ability to sell ideas, and Baywatch was at the front lines. So not only was it selling ideas, but it was, a platform to sell commercials. And now these kind of neoliberal ideas, these oceans schemes, are bleeding into TV. Is my thesis. And one thing I want to illustrate to you about that. One thing I want to tell you to illustrate that TV is just about selling shit, that TV is capitalist, it's not about good art, is Pam's sex tape. We haven't met CJ yet, but Pam's sex tape was a thing that came out, and the writers talk about it in that documentary I was watching, like, oh, what do we do? It was the first sex tape. Society was shaking their heads at it, the conservative.
And it came out when she was still... When Baywatch was airing and she was a star on it? Because I was a little kid when it came out.
She was a couple seasons, I believe, into Baywatch. It was with Tommy Lee, this rocker guy, right?
I know Tommy Lee, yeah.
Right. They film it, and it gets out, and it's devastating. She's suing people.
Yeah.
Like, she's having really embarrassed, having a hard time.
Yeah, I remember it being a big thing as a kid and seeing a copy eventually.
Right. Whereas today, like, I'm trying to, like, make sex tapes on OnlyFans right now, to make a little money. Because it's like a rite of passage, kind of.
Right. It's like not a thing at all.
But not so then. And so
it was before Kim Kardashian, Paris Hilton, before any of that.
Exactly, yeah. And at this point, like, the writers were like, oh, God, like, we're going to have to, like, write CJ off of the show probably because this is such a big... making so much noise and it's so negative.
Yeah.
And so they're scheming like, what are we gonna do?
Seems like the move.
But they had obviously But they had obviously had some shit in the can, right? So they aired the first episode that aired after all this news broke and made so much noise was like record busting for viewers, right?
Yeah.
So hold it, don't rewrite
ratings,
her,
like,
don't write her out of the show. What we need to
focus
do
on her.
is focus on getting all of these actors some sex tapes. So that we can just up the viewership, So it's funny to me because it's like it wasn't about like even their fake morals. Because in this documentary, they're always like, "Man, we were a family show. We everyone likes to say that it was like us selling sex, and it's like no, we cared about empowering women and about showing single dads, like which you observed.
Yes.
Like we care about all of these things, and we just wanted to make a show that brought people together, that helped people, and that was good. And then it's like, oh yeah, so like we were going to kick CJ out because it was going to lose money. But then when it made incredible amounts of money, we brought it back.
Realized, actually, we'll make more money.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's the Hobie 2, which you haven't met yet. I'm sorry to spoil. We're going to lose Hobie. In season 2, we're going to get Hobie 2, who is this actor who felt so moved to get like steroids and to get like muscle injections and shit like that because
muscle injections. That's not a thing. That's
look
like
it up. There's a thing called muscle. No, it's
no, I mean,
right.
that's
it's not
like,
muscle injections. It's what is it?
It's
you want to get jacked up.
No, people will get injections that will like be fake muscles, but
yeah, it's like rubbery and
that's like.
Well,
that's not muscles.
I didn't look into it that much. I just saw what they presented in the documentary. But they did say in the documentary that this kid went through several doctors. He said it himself. Like to Hobie too. Like he had to go through several doctors before a doctor would do it to him because many doctors were like, "You're so young. You shouldn't be doing this. Your body is still developing." But he was surrounded by all these older people, not elderly people
in their 20s,
older actors, getting
20s and
bodily
30s
enhancements.
Yeah, who are probably because some of those like actors who are on like the I was like saying the last episode, like the intro, that second intro they had was like all these bodybuilder looking. Yeah. So
there's a woman on the documentary too who says that like plastic surgery and boob enhancements and shit, like you can see the data of it going up
after Baywatch.
Yeah, and then Pamela notoriously didn't want her boobs anymore to be so big. You know, it was like, it's like painful. I don't like it. It's wrong. And the woman's like, yeah, a lot of women found that. That was their experience. It looked good and felt like shit. And then Pamela got rid of her boobs. And then she says that, like, oh, then you can see it drop back down again. You know, so it's like this idea of like media greatly affecting
people's
people's self-image
or their self-image.
What they think's
exactly.
important.
What they
general.
Think is sexy and what we idolize or want to.
And we went on a little tangents of just interesting stuff, but that brings it back to like sort of the capitalist, the whatever sells, the perhaps neoliberal response. The ocean's using TV as a tool. You know, TV and capitalism are prevailing. It sells shit. It might hurt people. Doesn't matter. And we're making more money. You know, TV's the strongest shit on the planet. As they grew, TV and capitalism, they learned and solidified their rules and strategies. And for TV, this was the industrialization of the story that we've mentioned. And that industrialization of story came in the name of the highest profits. You know, so one unwritten rule, we're talking about these rules, was described by this TV writer in an article that I'll link to, but I forgot the title of or the name of this writer. She says, TV drama hates a loose ending. It hates an unanswered question, she explained. Script editors and directors and producers always feel they have to teach the viewer something. They always want you to get the scene where you say, oh, and the moral of the story is this. She says it's very boring to write. You know, it's boring because more profit doesn't necessitate better art. And I say more profit because it's like, hey, these are the rules that work. These are the kind of closed-ended stories that teach a lesson that we always have to teach, you know, because that's what works. That's what people want. Keep turning it out, you know. And, not better art, but more profit. And so since...
Well, you know what I really loved is when at least... Because I agree, like, I do want that as a TV writer, like, from that TV writer's point of view, like that moral moment at the end where you have that moral of the story. Yeah. But, like, do it the way Animaniacs did. Yeah. Where, like, it's just at the end of the fucking very last 2 minutes of the episode, we're just going to we're just going to roll in a wheel.
Right.
We're going to spin the wheel and say the moral of the story today is...
Right.
It's brush your teeth.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, mommy. That's how you should do it. Just do your art, and then at the very end, just randomly throw out a moral of the story.
Right. That's that, like, modernist... You know, that's like Animaniacs.
Well, yeah, there's
being
their take on it. Yeah, exactly.
And Baywatch just being status quo.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because it's
around the same time, too. 1992. 1991, I think.
Yeah, a show that's made for kids as a reaction to just the saccharine bullshit that's everywhere else.
Yeah, yeah. And those TV writers, those comedy writers.
Which is why all the kids that grew up then are so smart.
Like us.
Yeah.
Go on, Drew.
So, you know, and like we say, more profit, boring, not better art. And, you know, so since maybe profit modeled these rules, you know, who makes these profits? Well, mega corporations now, Bill. And at the time of Baywatch, you know, they own TV media and their shareholders want more and more money each year. What this demands is, again, not better art, but more and more profitable art. So that necessitates rules being placed on TV that increase shareholder profits as opposed to like exploring what it means to be human or just making more compelling art. For the capitalist, and as we'll see for the ocean, art is useful not because of what it challenges us to feel, but because of how much money it brings in for the cronies, you know?
Well, yeah.
So what?
It's showbiz.
Right. And so what are these entities okay with us understanding? What's the messages? We talked about that rule of the moral at the end, and there's some other rules they want us to understand or things they want us to believe. And what are they teaching us through their tool of television? Well, capitalists who destroy the environment for their own profit, they don't want to be seen as villains. They see making the most money as a heroic feat, even if it disrupts life on the planet. You know, this want to profit or to paint greed as good wriggles its way into TV. And in a sense, you know, which is owned by and operated by greed.
I'm going to pause for a second, interject, because you know what it made me think of? I went back and rewatched the first episode and revisited a little bit of Captain Planet, because that was kind of an interesting thing, because it was like, here's this mega millionaire making a show that's like going to teach kids that like greed and all this shit's going to destroy the planet, and we need to like fight against it. And but they made a specific choice in the writers' room. They did not want any like oil companies to be the bad guys.
Yeah.
It's like, what if one of these kids' dads works as an executive for one of these oil companies?
Right.
We don't want them to think their dad is evil.
Right.
So we're gonna make them all these like kind of cartoon, more of like these like villains who are not like, they displace the capitalists. They don't really point the finger at the real capitalist oil companies and
Right.
extraction companies. No,
Right.
it's like this Hogman villain who's just like wants to just pollute the world for
Right.
some reason, not because of the capitalist like business reasons like
Right.
we're discussing.
And I posit, Bill, that there was a board meeting somewhere for Captain Planet, and it was the fossil fuel barons, all the titans of industry or whatever. They were the true villains of the show. And here's the writers' room. They're about to go into production.
Well, hold on. Let me
And
pause you for a
all of
second, though,
sudden-
because the Captain Planet writing
Yeah.
was like Ted Turner.
Okay, yeah, right.
It was
Well,
like
there you
Ted
go.
Turner
Yeah.
and his buddy, and he
Yeah.
was, and this woman that he like was friends with and hired, who was like in the environmental movement.
Yeah.
And we like went to parties with him and stuff. And he's
Yeah.
like, I want to write this cartoon show. It's gonna change the planet. It's gonna like influence all these kids. So like it was like just him being weird. But even with that mindset,
Right.
they're like, we can't actually point the finger at the real problem, which
Right.
is capitalism.
Right, because when I'm sure in that industry with Ted Turner, with everything, no matter where you go, there's a bucket of water somewhere that's at the highest levels of decision making.
Right.
That knocks on your door. Slosh, 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 and delivers that message that nope, you can't. We need to continue.
You better not mess with capitalism. This is
Yeah.
the water.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
gonna wake up dry drowning, bitch.
Right, they send a big bucket. Where do you think that prank?
Waterboard you.
Uh-huh.
Waterboard you with it.
How do you think that prank began? Like that was all the ocean. Like it started out innocent
It
enough.
was just warnings. It was just a warning from the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll continue here. There, a little more of my my dissertation. Capitalists, like I say, they don't want to be known for destroying the environment. They like making money. They see that as heroic. And so these ideas, these narratives, kind of wriggle into the TV storytelling. Villains are those who threaten the maximization of profits, and heroes ignore the gouging of the working class and everyone else as they persevere in their own lives without threatening the maximization of profit. Let's look at Hobie for a second. Hobie, we have him running into the ocean to save a drowning girl. There's hundreds of people out here. He's the only one to run past millions of dollars, because in the story, millions of dollars have been exploded and are now coming ashore on the beach, and everyone's running towards the money except for Hobie. He's heroic,
He sees the drowning girl and he's
Yeah.
gonna save her.
He saves her. He runs past all this money. And, if you're surrounded by a bunch of stolen money, it's heroic to ignore it. Just like it's heroic to ignore all the stolen profits that capitalists have extracted from labor.
Right.
So now,
Right. Just like it's how it's noble to fight against like pollution and that's
Right.
destroying the planet.
Right. And so, but how are villains portrayed in their narrative of wanting to protect their greed and, we'll call it in capitalist TV? Well, first I wanted to look at the word villain, Bill. I looked it up. So it's from the
Okay.
medieval Latin. The word villainous, don't know how to pronounce it, but meaning roughly inhabitant of a villa, basically just a synonym of the word villager. So it's just like a person or, in your village,
Whoa.
right?
Whoa.
Interesting, though, because the landowning aristocracy that dominated medieval society in the days of Middle English, they had all the power politically and linguistically. And so under their use of the word, they developed the meaning as a person of uncouth mind and manners.
Well, yeah, they're that untrustworthy villager down there that might steal from your fucking
You're
manor.
seeing it. Yeah. So it goes from, equating. Now it's starting the common equating of manners with morals gained strength and currency, and the connotations worsened so that the modern word villain is no longer an unpolished villager, but is now, among other things, a deliberate scoundrel, a criminal. I found it interesting that those who own the land, the ruling class, the most powerful, began to use the word to describe just someone they wouldn't want in their village.
Well, Drew, think about it, Drew. I mean, come on. Once you have shit,
yeah.
you're gonna be very untrusting and suspicious of everybody else who doesn't have shit,
Right.
because they're gonna want to take your shit,
Right.
So you should just automatically start to change your mindset and thinking to villainize them
Right.
and hate them.
Right.
Duh.
The more you acquire.
Do you
Yeah.
not have a brain? Drew?
Yeah, the more you acquire.
Yeah,
you
the
know?
more you hate those who don't have shit.
Uh-huh.
It just makes sense.
You're right. You're right. Right. So that's the thing I found interesting. Yeah, the rulers, they changed the world. It's
They
the
changed
world.
the language.
Yeah, so the word starts to just mean someone in the village, and then the most powerful mold it into meaning a person they don't want in their village. So if a hero is someone who ignores the ruler's abuses of power, then a villain would surely exhibit uncouth manners by challenging and questioning the ruler's power. Now, by challenging those in charge, they are seen as one who disrupts the normative morals, one who disrupts the shadow viewing inside the cave.
That too, yeah.
You
So,
know?
yeah, there's that aspect as well. Yeah,
Yes.
you're gonna take my shit and you're gonna disrupt
The
my
status
this
quo.
that keeps me with my shit.
Right. I'm the bourgeoisie, baby. Don't disrupt it. So, just look at our villains in this
And
episode.
it's the little Hitlers too, like
Right.
where we learn about the people who were like the slightly upper middle class, and that's a lot of the Trumpists or the people who own a car dealership, or,
Right.
Yeah.
And hire a bunch of like young kids, or just infer that a bunch of young kids should come defend it
Yeah.
with guns,
Yeah.
and then end up murdering some people.
Right, and then go on. But anyways,
So these villains in our episode, which I characterized in my pitch as the heroes of in my view, we're just supposed to hate these villains. We don't know their struggles, we don't know their life, what led them here. We do know that they just stole a shitload of money from a large bank, and I mean,
and they've got a kind of funny, playful banter.
yeah,
They seem like they're from New York.
And as I was writing or rereading this morning, I was like, oh, Marion from Psycho, she steals. I mean, not that she's like a hero necessarily, but we're sympathetic to her.
Well,
She steals a bunch of money because we get why that's a good idea. We all want a bunch of money, right?
yeah, and I was thinking about like all these. There's like a few Woody Allen movies I feel like where like he's trying to. There's one where he's trying to constantly like dig into the side of a bank.
Right.
Easy Money, I think.
Right.
That's like where but I think there's like there's a bunch of movies about lovable like bank robbers, because the
Right.
bank's the faceless evil.
Right,
But
right.
here
No.
we have the person who steals from the bank is the bad guy.
They're the villain, yeah. And of course, we kind of talked about how it could be sympathetic, maybe even a heroic act, but not for the powers of the ocean that suddenly control TV,
yes.
We're forced to accept that these are evil people because stealing from the rich is bad. And this show is written to protect class status quo, and of course to help further the ocean's plans.
And that is why it's even more heroic, or that is why the ocean makes Toby even more heroic to go
Hope.
past the money, because it's like, no, that's stolen money.
Right.
And you shouldn't worry about that. Instead, save this girl.
Right.
And that's the moral the ocean wants you to walk away with.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the ocean is evil, Bill. It doesn't care.
Well, wait a minute. The ocean's like, don't save a girl and don't take stolen money as evil.
What do you say?
What, just because the ocean wants you to say, hey, it's better to save a girl and not take stolen money, it's evil? I don't think that's necessarily true.
It wants you to ignore the evils of capitalism and
where that money comes from, and,
where it
and,
comes
and
from.
how it's
This is a
gotten,
subtle
and- yeah.
message. It's not being explicit.
No, it's
know.
and that's like how it gets you. That's
Right.
how, and that's why it's so subversive, in our
Right.
culture, because it will say, well, no, it's just what's right. I have
Right.
this. Like, why should I? What's wrong? Why should we have an estate tax? Why shouldn't I be able to give all my wealth to
Right.
my children?
It's responsible for what, like the marginal tax rate being like 37% now, and it
Goddamn
used to be
ocean.
like 90, 70, right? It helped lower that, and I'm just, I think it's kind of might be like a cue, it's just like this super, it might not realize that it's like malevolent, like that it has malice, it's like, I'm just doing what I need to do. And you might be able to sympathize with it at the end here when, tell you a little more about its story,
Okay.
Bill.
All right, keep going.
It just, I think it's evil, but it might just not care. We've
Okay,
seen what it's
okay.
capable of. We know it just kills people sometimes that touch it. Sometimes it kills people like 24 hours after they were in it. It's not just evil, though, because it's murderous. It seeks to eliminate most of humanity. And that's just a side note for its project. But, it's a small piece of its project. And it's doing this because I see it as selfish. It's a capitalist out of convenience, yes, but it doesn't care about making profits. It cares about climate change, Bill. The ice caps. About 18,000 years ago, during the last glacial period, ice sheets reached their greatest size. The ocean was pissed. Much of it was frozen, and as such, its powers were greatly diminished. As the sheets began to melt and the ocean grew stronger, it swore never again to lose itself to being frozen. You know, it's been in support of shows like Baywatch to distract us from the effects of capitalism on the planet so that it can more quickly reach its goal.
Oh my gosh.
It is an enthusiastic proponent
Oh my
of the
God.
fossil
You've
fuel
uncovered
industry.
the motive of the ocean.
Right? It's a proponent
That
of the
makes so
fossil
much
fuel
sense.
industry.
It was trapped in prison.
It was frozen, you know,
Yeah.
for so long. And
doesn't want to get back there.
yeah, and
So it's
anything that humanity can do to melt these ice caps, the ocean is behind, you know? You could say the ocean is the real power behind the powerful, you know, because at any point in history it could have done anything. It could have killed any human. But it seemed to just, you know, side with the bourgeoisie.
who knows how
It only
many
killed
wars,
folks like
how
MLK.
many naval battles were decided by
Right.
turns of the ocean.
Right, I know. You know, we don't know. You know, the podcast is going to turn into the expose of just what it's probably all what it's done. You know,
The ocean.
Yeah, you know. So the ocean is the big boss. Look how it treated its workers on Baywatch. Because you could argue that, you know, the ocean's riding Baywatch. It's pulling the strings. It's the big boss. It's the Bezos of Baywatch, if you will. The ocean was apparently so full of garbage that, and, you know, other suspect substances that medics would often have to disinfect the actors as soon as they got out of the water, spraying, quote, every orifice you could find, said Billy Warlock, who played Eddie Kramer. So they had to, you know, they just had to get sprayed down. They're swimming around in toxic shit just to make the show that is a message for the capitalistic ocean, you know. And we haven't gotten that far in the show yet, Bill, but we'll soon see that the cast turnover on Baywatch is akin to employee turnover at an Amazon warehouse, you know?
Oh, my gosh.
People are just coming in and out. They don't care.
Really?
So, you know, you'll see the ocean doesn't care about human rights. You'll see it doesn't care about environmental protection or even good art. You know, it seeks nothing short of literal world domination because it wants to melt and take over all the land. It wants to cover the world, and it already has us surrounded, Bill, and it's gaining ground quick.
It is.
It
That's
has us
true.
physically surrounded.
It
and
is
even
winning.
Yeah, even last week, Bill. I mean, here's the stats. One of the largest icebergs ever observed was broken up in the southern Atlantic Ocean. It drifted away from Antarctica in 2017, and at that point, iceberg A68A was roughly the size of Delaware. It weighed in at an estimated 1 trillion tons. Scientists warned that melting ice from this berg has dumped billions of tons of fresh water back into the salty oceans near South Georgia Island, with unknown consequences for marine life and the environment. But we know that it's making the ocean happy. It's stronger. It's getting bigger. More of its family has been reassimilated back into it, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm wondering.
Well, see, this whole time I thought it was the Republicans.
Right, I know. Well,
It's
I mean,
the
it's just a
fucking
small
ocean.
piece of the
Well,
ocean's
they've been
plan.
behind the ocean. The ocean's been behind them.
It's not wrong to, like, fight them.
It is the
you know.
Republicans,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
the ocean's behind it.
Exactly. You know, if you want to be completely
Fucking
eyes
Joe Manchin?
wide open.
Fucking the ocean.
Exactly. You know,
That's why he's on the boat.
right? That's where he
damn
has
it.
to stay.
God damn it.
You know,
he's been
it's fun-
coaxed by the ocean.
Gosh, I wonder what it is. Yeah, that we're probably going to find out that he can't leave it, you know? Like,
Oh, yeah.
Unless he's like
Oh,
in
my
Congress
God.
filibustering, you know?
makes sense now.
But, you know, to end it all, Bill, there might be one hope, you know?
Okay.
And to bring it all back again to what makes money. Because what makes money now and is pissing off so many of these Republicans? Well, identity capitalism, Bill. So I'm just thinking, will the ocean get woke, you know, just to sell more shit? Because that sells shit now, you know? And I don't think
Okay.
it's bad to learn about progressive and
There's
social
lots
issues.
of corporate wokeness that
Right.
Republicans are hating.
Right. And it's just making more people money. We talk about just not making good art or not making good
Yeah.
political content or
Right.
because you want to help things. You're doing it to make money.
Right.
So, you know, they're being woke to make money.
Right, but it is still going in that right direction, and a lot of Republicans in the right wing are like against it,
Right, and
because
I-
of the culture war stuff.
Maybe the ocean, you know, will have a change of heart. Like it'll start being woke because it sells, and like it could sacrifice itself, you know, for us. I don't know. It has a history of being, and we're probably going to uncover more as we continue this podcast.
I think the way that it's going to be woke, though, is like the way that it's going to, like Pepsi is woke, where it's like it's just gonna do like some signifiers.
You're right. Yeah.
Like do a commercial
And continue to make
where we have a Black Lives Matter sign and a cop like
right, but continue to do things that destroy
yeah, the planet,
people's faith in media, and all of these things,
and continue
right?
to take control over everything,
Right.
and melt all the icebergs,
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm, that's
That's what I think the ocean's plan is.
yeah. I think
That's
you're right.
that's how it's gonna get woke.
Yeah. And we can. I think you're right. So I wonder when we get to new Baywatch movie if we'll see that.
A little wokeness in the ocean. Yeah.
Because I'm
Okay.
not sure if it's true or not, but I think that came out in 2017, and that coincides
not
with.
that long ago.
I know, and that coincides with that big old Delaware-sized iceberg breaking off of Antarctica, and starting to melt.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it could be.
all I'm saying is,
it could have been part of it. Yeah.
they are connected. Is what I'm saying. They're clearly connected.
That's all you're saying.
Yep.
Yeah. You're not posing a question. You're clearly definitively saying without any evidence
yeah.
that is what happened because
the ocean's in charge.
Balls.
Yeah, it's controlling TV and everything. It's got us all surrounded. We're all pretty much dead anyway. We're trying to get that news out here, but none of you care
Which
anyway,
is
right?
why. Yeah, nobody cares. We should probably give up. We might not even come in
Not even
tomorrow.
gonna come in and do this ever again.
And honestly, I'm starting to think, why are we even trying? Maybe we all deserve it. Maybe we deserve it.
20% off all Baywatch merchandise, Baywatching podcast pills, Baywatching podcast T-shirts. You got to get these before the ocean takes
We've
over.
got double Baywatch points right now. We got double lifeguard LG points.
Woo! Yeah, you got it.
With some of our specials, they're really moving fast.
Oh, yeah.
Your support's what keeps us here, keep putting out the message against the ocean.
Yeah, just
keeping us fighting.
Watching Baywatch, decoding what the message is trying to do to all of us, really, to the children. This is for the children. This podcast.
They're trying to. It's trying to shut us down.
Right.
It's trying to shut us down now.
It's really. It's
that's why we need your support now more than ever.
Literally and symbolically trying to drown us out.
Exactly. That's why we need your support now more than ever.
Yes. So you can follow us on Twitter at.
You just donate money. In fact,
Yeah.
That's actually the best thing right now because our merch is backed up.
Yeah.
So just donate money for now, and we'll get the merch out soon.
Yeah.
So this has been Baywatching with Bill and Drew.
We love you.
Oh, sir. Just one more thing.
At Baywatching Podcast on Instagram, at BaywatchingP on Twitter. Buy the Mitch shirts.
And bye-bye, Mommy.